My name is Sarah, and at my birthday dinner in the glittering heart of Seattle's Glass Haven restaurant, my sister Chloe stood up, her hand on her barely bulging bust, and announced that she was carrying my husband, Ryan's child. The room spun. The clinking of wine glasses turned into a low roar, and every eye turned to me, waiting for me to break down. They wanted a scene, tears, screams, maybe a broken plate. Chloe's smile was sharp enough to cut glass, and Ryan, standing next to her, dared to look sympathetic, as if he hadn't just stabbed me in the back. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, my fingers touching my pennant and glass stem. While Chloe, 2 years younger, danced through life like the golden child, I was the one keeping the checkbooks when our parents forgot to pay the electricity bill. Chloe got the spotlight. New clothes, dance classes, all the accolades, while I got lectures about responsibility. "Sarah, you're so reliable," people would say as if it were a compliment, but it always felt like a cage. I didn't mind. Not really. I loved my sister, even when her charm overpowered me. I thought that's how families work. One of us was down to earth, one a star. When I met Ryan, I felt I'd finally found my light. He was a financial advisor, charismatic and full of big promises. We married in a small ceremony on the shores of Lake Washington, and I poured everything into building a life with him. My dream was a family, kids frolicking in the yard, a house full of laughter. But after years of trying, there were no children. Every negative test gnawed at me until I felt like I was failing at the one thing I wanted most. Ryan would hug me, his voice soft, and say, "It's okay, Sarah. We'll keep trying." I believed him. I believed in us. That faith was shattered one rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was in my apartment, searching for a lasagna recipe on our shared tablet, when an email notification arrived. It was from Chloe to Ryan. The subject line was simple: our plan. My stomach clenched as if I'd swallowed ice. I knew I shouldn't look, but my hands shook before my mind could comprehend. The email exposed everything. The affair. Months of stolen moments behind my back. But the last paragraph blew me away. Chloe's plan was to announce her pregnancy at my birthday dinner, humiliate me in front of everyone, and force me into a quiet divorce, where they would walk away with everything. "She'll cave," Chloe wrote. "She always does." I dropped the tablet, the screen cracking against the wooden floor, a stark reminder of the fracture in my chest. I staggered to the bathroom, closed the door, and pressed my back against it as if to keep the truth out. My breath was ragged, but I didn't cry. I opened my mouth, letting out a silent scream. A raw, wordless expression of the life I thought I had. Then something changed. The pain didn't break me. It fueled me. I picked up my phone and called Mia, my best friend since college. "Mia," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "It's done. They're trying to destroy me." "Sarah, where are you?"
"Home," I said.
"But I won't give up without a fight. I will burn their world to ashes." That same night, Mia arrived, her dark hair bouncing, and she stormed into my apartment as if ready to wage war. "We need a plan," she said, pacing the living room. I remembered. Ryan and I had been trying for a baby for years. I had begged him to get tested. He refused, procrastinated, and finally relented one day. He went to the Cascade Clinic alone, came home with bloodshot eyes, and hugged me as I sobbed. "It's not me, Sarah," she whispered. "The doctor says I'm fine. It must be you." I'd carried that burden for a year, believing I was the one broken. My body a failure. "Mia," I said, my voice hard. "I want the truth from the Cascade Clinic. Ryan's results from a year ago. Sarah, it's protected by HIPAA. It's not easy to access." "I'm his wife," I said in shock, my hands shaking. "There must be a way." Mia nodded, her eyes narrowed. "Give me a few days. I'll find the key to that castle." My heart pounded as I opened it. The report loaded, and I began scrolling through the summary. The patient showed 0 sperm motility. Diagnosis: anemia, infertility. The words felt like a slap in the face. Ryan wasn't just a deceiver. He convinced me I was the problem, knowing he could never give me the family I dreamed of. My hands trembled, not with grief, but with anger. If he could lie about that, what else was he hiding? I pulled out our bank statements from that month. No payment to Cascade Clinic. Instead, a $20,000 cash withdrawal stared back at me, unaccounted for. This wasn't just an affair anymore. This was something bigger, something more. The next morning, I met with Mr. Callahan, a private detective. I don't care about an affair, I told him, sliding a folder with bank statements across his desk. I know he's cheating. I need you to keep track of the money. As I left his office, the Seattle rain soaking my coat, I felt the spark of something new. Not just anger, but also strength. Ryan and Chloe thought they could break me, but they had underestimated me. I wasn't the fragile sister they'd overlooked. I was the one who'd held everything together all my life, and now I was about to tear them apart. Mr. Callahan arrived 2 weeks later, his report arriving in my inbox like a bomb. I opened the file. The data told a worse story than I'd imagined. Ryan had set up a shell account that Chloe used to receive money from. But the real shock was the transfer of $200,000 embezzled from his firm from Ryan's corporate expense account to a title company for a house in Tacoma, now in my mother's name. My own mother, who had always chosen Chloe over me, was part of their conspiracy. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a crime. It was a conspiracy, a deliberate plan to take everything from me. I called Mia, my voice shaking, not with tears, but with cold determination. I said, "They're not just taking my marriage. They're stealing my life." Mia arrived at my apartment within an hour, her laptop open. "They're planning to leave me broken and take everything." My mother's involvement stung the most. It felt like she'd erased me as her own daughter. I spent the next few days preparing, my anger turning to a torrent. Mia and I rehearsed my speech for the Glasshaven dinner. Mia said proudly, her eyes red, "You can do this. These aren't ready for you." I nodded and grabbed my 2 documents, which were to become my weapons. They were tucked away in my purse, a quiet promise of justice. The night before dinner, I stood on my apartment balcony. I felt the weight of my family's betrayal, Chloe's jealousy, Ryan's lies, my mother's complicity. But I also felt something else. Strength. I had spent my life being the stable one, the one who fixed things. And now I was going to fix it. Not by screaming or begging, but by being smarter, faster, more unstoppable. As the city lights reflected on the water, I whispered to myself, "Tomorrow they'll see who I really am." The glass paradise was filled with crystal chandeliers and soft jazz. I sat at a long mahogany table. I felt like I was walking into a battlefield. Chloe stood, her voice falsely sweet as she made her announcement. Ryan's hand was on her shoulder, his eyes fixed on me with a habitual pity I once mistook for love. The room went quiet, everyone waiting for me to break down. I didn't. I took a slow sip of my wine. I stood, my glass raised, my voice clear as the chandelier light. "From the family," I said, pausing to let the words settle. And truthfully, I reached into my purse, pulled out a folded piece of paper, a medical report, and slid it across the table toward Ryan. "What's this?" he asked, his voice muffled. "The truth," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. "From the Cascade Clinic. From a year ago." His face drained of color. Chloe's smile faltered. "The biggest lie wasn't that you were sleeping with my sister, Ryan," I said, my voice ice cold, echoing through the room. "It was you who was making me believe I was the reason we couldn't have a child." A deep breath rippled across the table. Ryan was infertile. Her pregnancy wasn't his. His eyes darted to her, then to me, his triumph replaced by fear. I turned to my mother, who sat rigid, her wine glass shaking. "And Mom," I said, my voice softening into something deadly. "That house in Tacoma is beautiful. But when Ryan's firm finishes investigating the missing $200,000 fraud, they'll come get it." The room erupted in chaos. Ryan pounced on the table, his face flushed with anger. "Liar," he yelled, but within seconds 2 security guards pounced on him, dragging him back. Chloe sat frozen, tears streaming down her face. My mother's sobs broke the silence. I felt no pity, just an intense, burning sense of triumph. I had spent years being calm, trusting. But tonight, I had become a storm that I picked at my purse. Mia was already beside me. As we walked toward the heavy oak doors, Chloe grabbed my hand, her voice a desperate sob. "Sarah, please." I looked at his hand, then into his frightened eyes, and freed myself. "Savior, please," I said softly. "Final. And call whoever the real father is. He deserves to know." The doors closed behind me, muffling the turmoil of the life I was leaving behind. For the first time in years, I could breathe the crisp, clear Seattle night air into my lungs.
The
Months after that night were a whirlwind of lawyers, depositions, and paperwork, but this was a clean break. Ryan's firm, desperate to avoid any public controversy, generously settled. I moved into a small apartment in Fremont, Seattle. I found a pottery studio nearby, a quiet place where my hands worked the wet clay, shaping something new from the tangles of my past. "Is the divorce final?" Mia asked, smiling. "That was a few days ago," I said, my smile genuine, carefree. My phone buzzed on the table. A news alert. Former financial advisor Ryan Carter was sentenced to 5 years in prison for embezzlement. A blurry photo showed him in handcuffs. I stared at him, feeling nothing, no anger, no joy, just silence. That was a chapter one had closed. I turned to my potter's wheel. "Where were we?" I said to Mia, turning the wheel again. For a long time, I thought I was the one who was broken. The one who couldn't grow. But I wasn't broken. I was just planted in the wrong garden, surrounded by people who wanted to see me wither instead of flourish. Every scar tells a story of survival, strength, and new beginnings.